Range Rover is proud to partner Monocle on Design on Monocle Radio. Every Range Rover is created to elevate leaders' lives with cutting-edge design, connected, refined interiors, and electrified performance. These qualities drive every Range Rover to deliver unrivaled luxury. This vision is inspired by the same values that created this icon 55 years ago. To hear how Range Rover is elevating leaders' lives, tune in to a special season of On Design Extra, in which the Monocle team meet the innovators, trailblazers and design leaders who are inspiring the Range Rover journey. Listen out for those special programmes soon on monocle.com or wherever you get your podcasts. Monocle on Design and Range Rover, elevating leaders' lives.
Good design can be efficient, streamlined, practical, getting us from A to B with minimal fuss. But should speed always be the goal? Thoughtful design can also invite us to take the scenic route, to find beauty in the functional and function in the beautiful. What happens when designers ask us to slow down and reconsider what we thought we knew? To stay just a little bit longer. This is Monocle on Design.
What is collectible design? Why should people collect pieces and not use them? Every piece that's bought, that's designed, should be used. There's beauty in functionality or in use.
He had found this incredibly distinctive visual style. That is something that has really made him so beloved.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Monisse. On today's program, improving your A to B with good design. We discuss the things that make our journeys that little bit better. Why working with our hands may give us more time, not less, with Nifemi Marcus Bello. And finally, we flick through the pages of a new book about the colours of Wes Anderson. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Grace Charlton, you've been on the road a lot lately.
Yeah, on that wide open road, I'm actually off again tomorrow.
I mean, this is the thing. The beauty of our jobs is that we're constantly on the road, but it's also equally exhausting.
It's exhausting, and I spend a lot of my time packing and unpacking. That's my plan tonight, actually.
Do you just have a go bag ready, like constantly ready to go?
I don't have a go bag, but I do have a packing list like taped to the inside of my wardrobe. And I also think I've sort of perfected the art of packing. I want to talk to you about this.
This is a huge
insight into my psyche.
So you have perfected the art of it. I mean, hang on. What makes you think you've done that?
I'm really good at compartmentalizing my feelings, but also everything
bottle it up, push it down. I think I might be the only person whose therapist has encouraged them to sweep things under the rug. It's like, you know what? No, don't listen to your gut. In fact, your gut said sweep that under, push it down, do that, push it down.
Feelings, not facts.
No.
So I compartmentalize all of my belongings into different little pouches from Tekla, actually, weirdly. So they're all in the same like sort of cotton canvas colour scheme.
Built for traveling?
No, just from like random PR gifts I've received over the years, which I'm very appreciative for. Thank you, Tekla. So I have one for like all my tech and important bits. I have one for my passport, keys, aspirin. I'm the queen of migraines when I'm on the road. I've got to always travel with those. And then I've got one for like my underwear and socks and then other stuff. So basically everything is preordained into these little compartments.
And then you're just filling a final bag, I guess, with whatever clothes you need for while you're on the road.
Exactly.
So, because this is it. I do think compartmentalizing travel is kind of key. And this is so. If you're the expert, so what are your tips?
Yeah. So use lots of little pouches to compartmentalize. 2, streamline your tech. This is a really big one. I don't travel with adapters. You know those bulky adapters that you used to have in the 90s. I'm assuming they whatever. I only travel with like one power bank. And then 2 cables, one for my phone, one for my laptop. And then 2 of those plugs that you can insert in and out. They're just like the sleek ones you get from Apple.
You change the power adapter point based on whichever country that you're in.
Exactly. I've got the UK one and the EU one. and that's pretty much good. What about you? How do you travel? What are your top tips?
This was going to be one of mine. I actually do have the universal adapter. Bear with me, but it means that because I've been...
But you travel more to Asia
and the United States. I'm using often 4 to 5 different adaptation points over the course of a year. Is that
what they're called?
I don't know. Whatever the point where you plug it in. So I do have one of those universal ones, but again, there's no additional. I'm not plugging anything in other than the cable itself. So everything is just like this little cube, and then the cables go directly into it. There's no kind of interfacing power connection point. It's just straight into the universal plug with whatever cable you need, and then that's straight into the wall, and you can kind of chop and change whichever continent you're on. That's one of my other big ones. I'm also big on because I know we have to travel together a lot for work, for design events and trade shows. You think I'm a little bit of a bag boy.
Oh, I know you are. I've seen you rock up to the airport with like 5 separate tote bags.
It's 4
also,
bags.
None of them are backpacks for some reason. So you're just like swinging around 4 bags like an actual bag lady.
This is worth clarifying. There's a duffel
and
bag.
then we have to like stop every 5 minutes so you can reshuffle and find something in your bag, like, I don't know, your passport, and you don't even know where it is.
No, I do. That's the one thing I do know where it is.
To finalize this like visual image, and then you've got like a little banana bag.
Yeah. That's where my passport is. I know exactly where my passport is. So it's 4 bags. It's the little crossbody. It's the duffel, which has all my clothes in it. I can see, for listeners, I can see Grace's face tweaking as
what was that? All your clothes. Yeah, you pack for like 3 weeks, even though it's 2 nights.
Yeah, I know. I like to have options. This is it. I am never caught out while I'm on the road. And if I look like I'm traveling a little bit heavy, fine. But it means that when I'm there, I've got backups, which I know has come in handy for you before when you've packed only a limited number of shirts and I get a WhatsApp in the morning being like, hey, do you happen to have a backup black silk shirt? Of course I have a backup black silk shirt. I'll get it couriered over to your hotel room right now. So there is a benefit to traveling heavy. I feel like I have no interest in traveling light. I want everything, but I also want it carry-on size. So this is where it comes in. It's the packing cells, kind of similar to what you have. Everything in a duffel. Then I have a work bag with me, which is sort of my breakout bag for the for the plane. But I will have a novel in there. I will have inevitably a few Monocle magazines in there. I'm partial also to bring a coffee table book. I kind of like. I'm looking for inspiration when I'm on the road. Yes, but I'm also when I'm returning to my hotel room.
And you wonder why you have to see a chiropractor and you've got back problems.
This is exactly it. Then we've got the breakout bag. It's by the Japanese brand called Milestone. It's just a lovely little crossbody. I've got my passport in there. I've got my phone. I've got my keys.
You've got your tweezer. You've got your nail file.
I do have my tweezer and my nail file in there. This means I'm ready to go no matter where I am in the world. And then finally, often if we're going to a cold climate, I have an additional tote bag which I've stuffed my jacket into inevitably. So yeah, 4 bags, but I am ready to go. I could be at sea for weeks and be perfectly fine. I'm quite pleased with that. That would be my top 3. I think the other thing, duffel bag rather than a rolly suitcase. I think
hard agree.
And I use one by a Japanese brand called Travel Equipment. Japanese make the most efficient travel gear you can imagine. Every good brand I use, I feel like is Japanese. Porter's another great example. But Travel Equipment, it means that you can, if you need to fit it underneath your seat on an aircraft because all the overhead's been taken, you can do that. It takes up less room.
I used to be someone who never travelled with a wheelie bag because I found them really annoying. I also don't like them in the airport when people just roll them behind. Oh, it's embarrassing.
I think this is proving more than anything is that there is lots of different ways to travel. What I do think, even though it sounds like I'm not being very efficient, I actually think for the maximalism that approach I'm taking to travel, I'm incredibly efficient. Everything kind of has its place, and it does come in handy. I mean, I was telling you this the other day. I was flying back from New York. The guy next to me spilt his Coke onto his drinks tray. In my little crossbody bag, yes, I had a couple of tissues. He was trying to catch the Coke in his hands, but I was able to mop it up for him. And, not all heroes wear capes. Some of them wear crossbody bags. Speaking of catching things with your hands, I mean, he was catching Coca-Cola, so not ideal. But I want to talk about somebody that works with their hands a lot. Nifemi Marcus Bello. I mean, how's that for a segue? Incredible Nigerian designer. We saw him just the other week.
Yeah, he He's so lovely. I know it's like such a boring comment to make, but like he's literally 6'3". He's so nice. He's got this amazing aura, and he saw you, Nick, and I've never seen someone so excited to see you. And he just gave you this like huge bear hug.
I mean, he's an incredible man. This is radio is an audio medium, not visual. Let's make Nifemi 6'7". I mean, he's gorgeous, tall man. He can be whatever we kind of want him to be, but he's also an incredible designer. So he mixes what I love about his work, and I've long admired it. He won a Monocle Design Award in 2023. I want to say he's somebody that, yeah, we've followed for a long time. But the thing that I really, really enjoy about his practice is the fact that he mixes industry and craft. He kind of runs a two-pronged studio, and I think that's a really beautiful way to go about things. So he kind of has one side which is all about making really considered pieces, working with local materials, embracing craft traditions, and then he's got this more industrial side, which isn't any less considered, but I guess it's also pieces that you can kind of make at scale. And equally, while he's doing that, he's challenging and trying to bring along production networks in part of the world he's working in. But a lot of it does come out of Nigeria and his hometown of Lagos. We've talked recently about the sofas in your own home. Would you be open to a Nifemi Marcus Bello piece in your own home?
Yeah, for sure, if it's going. I really liked the piece he had on show in Paris. It was this shelf, and then it had a speaker integrated into it. But there were these sort of really intricate hand-carved details on the side of the wood. Which, yeah. And what did you think of
this? This is coming back to industry and craft, because he was working with an audio production company that do make industrially produced speakers, but also then that I guess that handcrafted element. What I do love about this, actually, and this is coming full circle, we're gonna bring it back to the Sofas book. So he is in the Designers on Sofas book. As you mentioned, we saw him in Paris at Contributions, this amazing design fair, where he was showing this piece, and I was like, hey, Nifemi, I kind of recognise that. Is that in the background of the photo of you at home? Like, have you made this piece, yes, for Contributions, but also maybe for yourself to keep at home? And that was certainly the case. So I kind of also admire just somebody that's like, I'm going to make something beautiful, but if there's no like particular client in mind, why not make yourself the client?
I would say, yeah, I fell in love with design when I studied it, but I actually realized that my mom gave me my first commission at 14.
Yeah, wow.
Where she asked me to make a bathtub for her with some local welders in Lagos. And I realized, oh, wow, I actually went through the whole process of having a client, going back and forth, you understand, prototyping, iterating, etc. So I think my first ever commission actually was when I was age 14, and that came in the realization of actually writing this book.
So why did she ask you? Like, had you expressed an interest in making? Did you just like baths as a 14-year-old boy?
I mean, for growing up, my mom, I failed everything apart from art and design.
Really?
Yes, I was terrible at everything else. But at art, I always got 99%. Design, 100%. Like, it was actually, there were no flaws when it came to that. And she wanted me to study art or design, but mostly art because she understood art, kind of. And when she noticed I was using my hands and she found out that, okay, she needed a new bathtub, instead of getting a new bathtub, she ripped out the old one. And then was like, oh, can you think of like metal legs to hold up the bath? And then I sketched it, and she was like, oh, I'm going to take you to a welder. So it was like a whole induction.
I mean, this sounds like
lifestyle. Yeah.
Amazing parenting.
Yes, like amazing foresight.
Truly, like, kind of nurturing your creativity as well.
Yep. Which is why, like, even with this monograph and this book, with Apartamento, I've actually dedicated it to her.
Amazing.
Because for me, I think without that intervention, I probably would have still been lost, and I wouldn't love what I do as much as I do, if that makes sense. I don't think it will resonate as much with me.
Did that early piece? I mean, like, when I think of your work, there's always kind of layers and meaning and kind of depth imbued into it, whether you're pulling on, local cultures or using local materials. When did that come along? Was that an early part of your work? Was that there when you were making the bathtub?
No, definitely not. I think that came along after like graduating Leeds and then heading back to Lagos. And I always had this question around, you understand, how it would feel like to actually practice design in Lagos from that lens and not think of the outside noise or think of like trends or what was cool and what wasn't and what people were doing. I actually wanted to be as honest as possible. And I think the best way I could do that was to unlearn some of the things I had learned in Leeds and just let go.
What does that mean? What did that start to look like when you returned to Lagos? I
think it was just understanding that there was high design happening, and that it was important to also kind of look inwards, and that context matters.
So hang on, first, high design, what do you mean by that?
So high design in the sense that, yes, a lot of people are making stuff and they're not making it into the galleries, but they're people making stuff. They're people actually thinking of design solutions from a cultural standpoint. So some products that exist in Lagos don't exist in London, but they're integrated into everyday life in Lagos. So
people are making those.
So people are making those. So there's high design, high IQ of design. And for me, I think it was just opening a third eye to understand that was happening. And I also think that context matters. The way I would be designing right now, if I was in London, I probably wouldn't be designing the way I am. Like, I'm very hands-on. I think people tend to, with my practice split in half with the commercial and artistic side, even though people use the word collectible design, and I think it's a bit of a weird one because, I mean, if you really break it down, what is collectible design? Why should people collect pieces and not use them? I think every piece that's bought, that's designed, should be used. There's beauty in functionality or in use, either emotional, physical functionality. It still has to be used. So for me, the reason why I've done that and split that is that with the artistic side, I can really ask questions, which is what this show is about in Lagos. It's about sparking a dialogue, thinking about the type of materials and why certain materials are a lot more prominent, why certain materials exist, and how globalization is impacting the material evolution that's happening in Lagos.
You're running a global or globally renowned practice based in Lagos. What happens when you bring your work or your expertise to another part of the world? Are you doing research into the materials there and the people that are making there? How do you run a global practice yet still be place based? I guess is my question.
Yes, I mean, I think for me the cornerstone of the ideology behind my practice is humility, and I learned that in Lagos. And it's understanding that cultures are different and approaching it knowing fully well that you kind of have to always take the back seat as a designer. A lot of the times I feel like before practicing in Lagos, I tried to dictate a lot of the output that came out. But now that I'm in Lagos and practicing, it's like, okay, you're taking the back seat and understanding exactly what people want, understanding the context, understanding the ethnography of the situation that you find yourself in before actually solving a problem. So the way I think now globally is just immersing myself in the situation and then pulling from the findings, basically.
And also, when you're talking backseat, are you talking about also, I guess, listening to the people that are making the objects?
Yes.
Is there also a bit of a relationship there? And I guess giving credit to the knowledge of the people making it?
Yes, I think that, with good design, with Dieter Rams always talking about like the end products and functionality, I think you really have to think of the ecosystem. So even when you're designing, and good design should fall into consideration of just not the end user, but all stakeholders involved, so the manufacturer, the people who are going to source the materials, etc. I think having those conversations early before actually bringing your opinion to the table is crucial, especially in the world where we live in now, where everybody's idea seems to come out every 5 minutes and not consider the whole ecosystem. But then after, when an idea comes out, it's like, okay, so how do we produce that?
Yeah.
But if you actually work backwards and reverse engineer, you realize that we probably shouldn't be consuming or making as much as we do, if that makes sense.
So I guess it's also having moments of pause and
Yes.
consideration and reflection.
Of course.
Does this also, I know that, I guess, the human hand is incredibly important, or the presence of the human hand is incredibly important to your practice.
Yes.
Is this also part of it, like a slowing down almost?
Yes, I think, I always say that in Europe, things it feels like things are moving too fast. And I feel like on the continent in Africa, things slow down because we use our hands for absolutely everything. Nothing is too automated just yet. So it feels like you're living in an analog world, but in a digital setting, so to speak. So that this is where I always question the idea of like AI, for example, because AI as well is finding its way into the continent. But I always try to say it's important for us to understand the technology and know how it's going to enhance what's already there in comparison to bringing it in and then dictating something, dictating our lives and changing the way that we live, I think, all of a sudden. So yes, handwork is crucial.
That was Nifemi Marcus Bello. Grace, I want to ask you, he was talking a little about this uneasiness with the term or the idea collectible design. It kind of gets thrown around a lot. And I do see the usefulness of that. I guess it's talking about maybe more one-off or unique pieces. But what's your gut feel or reaction to it?
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it, to be saying that during the week of, Design Miami Paris, this sort of pantheon of collectible design. I feel like there's a really interesting conversation happening around this at the moment. And, does every piece of design need to just be fully led by function first? I tend to disagree, actually. Sometimes I think it ends up creating furniture that's like the sort of design equivalent of a pair of sweatpants. I think there needs to be a recentering of aesthetics. And also, what's happened to just like living with things in a way that you take care for them? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when people are like, oh, design needs to be functional, it often means that it gets battered around. What happened to like sort of being really careful with the things you own? I think it's sort of a hangover of almost the throwaway culture that we've inherited. Do you know what I mean?
I think you're talking a little bit about durability in terms of its relationship to functionality.
Yeah, possibly, but not even durability as well, just like comfort. Like just people don't want to live with things and cherish them as like art.
I have this and we were talking about this, I guess, before we came on air, but the idea of like tracksuit pant design in terms of like maybe there's a little bit of like you're talking about aesthetics there and functionality. There's pieces of clothing like a tracksuit that are almost purely comfort. There's no kind of aesthetic to it. People try and do aesthetic takes on it, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're still wearing activewear, which maybe isn't appropriate for every setting. And I think the same thing could almost be said of furniture. Maybe there's a tendency to tracksuit pant it, for want of a better expression. There's this idea that jeans can't also be comfortable, and I don't think that's correct. I will literally fly for 14 hours in a pair of jeans, no worries at all. What are you wearing?
Yeah, you're wearing jeans for 14 hours?
Yeah, no worries at all.
Well, no, that actually, your jeans probably have a lot of stretch in them, to be honest.
No, they're 100% cotton. There's no elastane in any of my jeans.
14 hours in jeans?
Yeah, no worries.
I think that's a little bit gross. I change into leggings.
On the flight?
If it's a long haul flight, I'm changing into leggings.
I guess what I'm saying, and what's upsetting here is that you've contradicted me when I'm actually trying to back you up right now. What I'm trying to say is that I think that the two things can exist at the same time. I think things can be aesthetic and functional and comfortable at the same time, and I don't think we need to go one way or the other. I feel like, if I can project, your reaction is of only aesthetics mattering is, I guess, a bigger reaction to this question of like, let's only design things for comfort. I think the best works of design do kind of strike that balance, and I know that's really easy to say, but it's incredibly difficult to do.
Beauty is a function in itself. I do see that. But sometimes I feel like people don't necessarily like want something that's beautiful but not the easiest to live with. And I think sometimes we've just prioritized a little bit too much the people-centric design of just like something that's really ergonomic and comfortable and like easy to wipe down, just like purely functional. And I'm sort of trying to, in my own personal life, not always go for that option.
I love that. Beauty is a function in itself. I think that's really nice. So few auteurs have created as distinctive an aesthetic in their films as Wes Anderson. Grace Charlton, thoughts on Wes Anderson quickly?
Yeah, great. Very distinctive.
Well, yeah, bright bubblegum colours, striking symmetry, retro sensibility. The man does it all, which is being explored in a new book called Colours of Wes Anderson, The Films in Palettes, as by Hannah Strong. It's detailing and unpacking the symbolism of the colours used in Wes Anderson's film. It's kind of doing exactly what it says on the box. Well, Monocle's Sophie Monaghan-Coombs sat down with the book's author to find out more. She began by asking Hannah why she wanted to focus specifically on the colours in Wes Anderson's work.
So I was actually approached by Quarto about the book at the end of the year before last, a long time ago now. And they had previously published a book by my friend and colleague Charlton called The Colours of Film, which is a look at the history of film similarly through, I think, 50 palettes, and Grand Budapest Hotel is on the cover of that book. So I think they already had an idea that they maybe wanted to zero in on a particular filmmaker next. And off the back of the success of that book, they were looking for someone who might like to write about Wes Anderson. And they had read my Sofia Coppola book, and they'd also read some work I'd written for Little White Lies about Wes Anderson. And they said to me, would you have any interest? And I said, that's funny you say that, because I love Wes Anderson, and I was really intrigued by the idea of approaching it from such a specific lens. I think that there's so much incredible writing out there about Wes Anderson, and over the course of his career there have been many monographs published about him which kind of examine all the films from a kind of comprehensive level. But one of the most striking things about his film is his sort of aesthetic style, and being able to kind of just zero in on that for an entire book was really exciting to me. And yeah, it felt like a bit of a privilege to kind of pick up this mantle from Charles and be able to go deep on a filmmaker who I really love and really admire.
Can you talk a little bit about the process? Because you go through his whole body of work and identify these colours, and you have them very specifically kind of laid out. So were you watching all of these films and making notes? How did it work?
Yeah, it was a bit of a mammoth task, because obviously I've watched all these films before, but kind of going through them with such a specific lens, you're almost not always paying attention to what the characters are talking about or what's going on in the plot. You're just thinking about the colour theory and about the symbolism and about how the visual elements kind of impact your experience of the film. And with Wes, he's a filmmaker who is very much driven by colour, and there's a essay in the book about the way that he uses colour to kind of speak for the characters sometimes. So there is a real uphill battle, I think, with Wes, just in terms of pure volume. And also there's a lot of stuff that I think hasn't necessarily been discussed in general conversations around him, such as he's done a lot of advertising work over the years. And it was really interesting to kind of get into how his personality and his kind of sensibilities as a director have actually become this kind of brand all of their own. And he's now very much hired because brands want to kind of replicate that style. And I think that having to kind of balance, you know, the really well-known aspects of his career with the kind of hidden ones that would make people interested in buying another book about Wes Anderson was really a bit of a fine act to me. But it was so rewarding, because obviously I've watched these films many, many times over the years, but going in with a kind of different hat on, a different pair of glasses to watch them, was really special. And it felt like I was kind of watching them for the first time again in a lot of cases.
I want to pick up on something you mentioned there, the Colour Speaks segment of the book, where you talk about how Wes Anderson's films are known for having this unnatural dialogue and things like that, but you actually bring out the fact that colour is sort of used to show emotion or to kind of bring characters together or to draw them apart and to show that visually, maybe instead of how they're communicating with each other. Could you talk a little bit about that and maybe give a couple of examples of where that happens?
Yeah, I think that Rushmore's a really good example of this. It's a very autumnal film, and all the characters have their kind of unique colour palette within the film. So Max, played by Jason Schwartzman, you will always kind of see him in his blue blazer and his little red beret, and his love interest, Rosemary. I say love interest, the unrequited object of his affections. Rosemary, who's his teacher, is always her most kind of memorable outfit. It's this sort of baby blue shirt that she wears. She's often seen painting in this shirt. And there's kind of an instant connection formed between, you know, those two. There's a sort of replication, I guess, of the draw that he feels to her. Mm-hmm. And then you have the way that the seasons change throughout the film, and it becomes kind of more melancholy. And that seems to be a reflection of this teenage boy's kind of feelings of rejection and kind of isolation throughout the film. So I think that Wes really is a filmmaker who his characters struggle to communicate, and that has been a constant throughout his career, I think, in any one of his films. But the way that he chooses to use specific colours to kind of emphasise that kind of difficulty is really something that makes him, I think, quite unique. And I think that another kind of example that I really love is in The Darjeeling Limited, which is a film that's kind of bursting with colour and life. And then at the centre of it, you have these three men kind of going through an existential crisis. So you have this juxtaposition, I guess, of this world of great beauty and great kind of cultural vibrancy, and then three men who are simultaneously very drawn to it and kind of trying to find themselves through this totally different culture, but kind of don't fit in. And I think that he's a filmmaker who really is so considered in how he stages everything in a single scene. It's like every single shot in his films are very painterly. And I think that they are instantly recognisable. And that's something that, again, we were really trying to kind of draw out in the book. If you look at it, we went through so many screenshots, and I was kind of painstakingly taking them on my computer to kind of reflect, hopefully, some of what I was getting at in the essays.
And one thing I wanted to ask you, because you chart all of his films, but as you say, his advertising work and, you know, some of the other bits and pieces that he's done. And I wanted to ask if you felt like his use of colour changed over time. The original version of his first film, Bottle Rocket, was actually in black and white, but it feels like he's had this super strong aesthetic the whole way through. And did you find that, or did you see that it did sort of change over time, or you see colours creep in or disappear?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that yellow is a colour that a lot of people associate with Wes, and there was a little essay in the book called Wes and Yellow because it's such a recurring colour in his work. But that certainly was present in the feature-length version of Bottle Rocket, which was shot in colour when they made the move from the short film after Sundance. And one of the kind of resounding images from that film is Owen Wilson in this incredible banana yellow jumpsuit. They say he looks like a little banana man in the film. And I think that colour has really become a sort of standard for him in every single one of his films. Black and white is really interesting with Wes because, yes, you're correct, he made Bottle Rocket, the short film, in black and white. I think as kind of an homage to Jean-Luc Godard and all his kind of heroes and this idea of the moody crime thriller. But then we don't really see it creep back in again until, I believe, Grand Budapest Hotel was the first film where he incorporated a little black and white. And then, again, he uses it in French Dispatch and in Asteroid City and in The Phoenician Scheme. So he has become, I would say, over the years, more experimental, I think, in his use of colour. But definitely, I think, by the time we got to Rushmore and the Royal Tenenbaums, and he was really becoming sort of one to watch in Hollywood and in the world of independent cinema, he had found this incredibly distinctive visual style. And I think that is something that has really made him kind of so beloved. I think there's a sort of consistency with Wes Anderson, but at the same time, if you look at something like Phoenician Scheme, it's so elaborate and so kind of majestic compared to something like Moonrise Kingdom, which is a lot simpler. And then if you factor in his stop motion work as well, which is everything created ground up, you know, from the smallest blade of grass in the forests in Fantastic Mr. Fox to these incredible puppets, I think that while there has been a consistency, he's always been looking to kind of evolve and to try new things. And I think that baseline of tastes that he's very loyal to, but a willingness to kind of invent and experiment and work with new artisans and new talent has really made him the artist he is today. That
was Hannah Strong and Monocle's Sophie Monaghan-Coombs. I mean, jumping off the back of that, I want to ask Grace, have you ever had your colours assessed or your colours done?
No, I've tried to self-assess. Have you done that? Where you take a selfie in natural light and then you have to pull from your face different colours?
What did you get? I haven't done that.
Well, obviously green for my eyes, mousy brown for my hair, the bit that's you're not supposed to do the bit that you've bleached, you just do the natural hairline, and then your skin tone. And then I tried to do that correctly. I can show you the photo. And I still have no idea which season I am. So I just wear black all the time.
We're on Monocle On Design. That is the designer's colour of choice. That is the easy, uniform, no decisions made.
Yeah.
I haven't had my colours done, but I feel like I look good in maybe cool tones.
Yeah, I reckon you're
for a pretty cool dude.
I think you're a true summer.
I'm a true summer.
I think you're a true summer, and you've got that Mediterranean olive skin tone that I truly wish I had, because I just look washed out in every single colour that isn't black.
I mean, this is the thing. Imagine me with green eyes. I mean, I'd just be...
Oh, my God.
I'd be a movie star. I wouldn't
God
be
would
here.
have made you too strong. That's why he gave you brown eyes.
This is exactly it. On that strong visual, that's where we're going to end today's show. For more design stories, pick up a copy of Monocle magazine. Today's episode was produced and edited by Hassan Anderson and Elliot Greenfield with help from Lily Austin. I'm Nick Monisse.
I'm Grace Charlton.
Thanks for listening.